Hi everybody, it's Joe Cioffi here on this Monday. Turned out to be a pretty interesting day. I saw my first snowflakes of the year, which was quite a nice little surprise this morning with these some snow showers that moved on through. So that was a good thing. And weather this week looks very quiet. If you are Thanksgiving bound just about anywhere except for the Pacific Northwest, and maybe for Florida. And in Florida's case, we're not talking about, any kind of big storm or anything, but there might be some rain issues. Other than that, the weather this whole week looks very, very quiet and very benign. So, why don't we take a look at what's going on? I was kind of looking, sometimes when the weather pattern gets quiet like this, you wind up seeing weather models kind of in a, I don't know if I want to use the word confused state, but sort of in a bit of a wishy-washy state. There's just nothing for anything to really play off of, so you can't, it becomes a little harder to try and figure out where we're going to go as we move forward. I think this week, pretty much, except for weather fronts coming through, is going to be a non-event, other than a shower here on along the immediate coast late Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, or a brief period of rain, and that may be pushing it. And then the next cold front that comes down for Saturday night as we move into Sunday in the first part of next week, that's going to bring in another shot of cold air into the east. And that shot might wind up pushing pretty far south into the southeastern states. It may even bring overnight lows Sunday night, Monday morning into the 40s over a good chunk of the state of Florida, including the southern part of Florida. But that's pretty much the extent of it. No big storms anywhere, really. If you look at the eastern satellite loop, you've got some clouds here and there. There's a little bit of snow winding down this evening in parts of upstate New York and western Vermont, and that pretty well covers it. There's an area of light snows moving along with low pressure along the Canadian border. There's a bit of a warm front that extends southward from there, and you can barely find it. In fact, if you see look at the arc of the clouds here, the core of the cold air that came down yesterday and last night's already pulled out, and we're going to start to see milder air come in for a day or so, and then another colder shot for Wednesday night into Thanksgiving Day and Friday. That's for the east. Nothing exceptional in terms of cold, but it's going to make for a really good-looking Thanksgiving Day. And we've got some clouds up in the northern Rockies. The Pacific Northwest has really been the one spot that's been, consistently busy lately. And when we look at the satellite loop of the Pacific Northwest, there's a ton of moisture that's shooting up. The subtropical jet here is coming straight from the south and running northeastward, and we're seeing that moisture pouring in to parts of northern California, the northern half of California, and on up through Oregon and Washington. So we're going to be dealing with some heavy rains in that area. So why don't we bring up the GFS, and we'll take a look at what the new GFS run is telling us, because it's pretty much done. I love these, once we went back to standard time and the GFS starts at 4:30 in the afternoon instead of 5:30 in the afternoon, it just makes it so much easier, because I have the bulk of the whole run by the time we get to these live streams. Okay, so here we have what's going on with the rain that's coming into California and on up into Oregon and Washington. You notice, by the way, that the rain-snow line in the west is pushed further inland, and that's because the general ridge position that's kind of occupying areas just to the west of there. And there's more rain as we move on into Wednesday night. Not much action going on in the east. You can see that rain that's over Florida. And here's Thanksgiving morning with rain in the Pacific Northwest. And there's that rain for Florida and parts of the southeast on Thanksgiving Day. But look at the rest of the country, just absolutely wonderful weather-wise. The rain clips the southeast coast. We get another warm front, cold front swing Friday night and Saturday, and then a cold front moves through. More rain for the Northwest down to Northern California. Now, there's actually two fronts here coming through in the east. The first one really is right about here, and then there's a second one that really marks the coldest of the cold air that's coming down. Now, that first one comes through, might be a couple of showers with that late Saturday, and then the second one with the cold air comes in Sunday night into Monday, and sometimes you can get a system to develop with the front. You can see the GFS actually tries to do something way offshore, but with the upper trough swinging through, I think there's a fair chance you might see some snow showers with that Sunday into Sunday night. You can see some snow action in the northwest. Another weak system from there. There are no big storms, and of course at this point, as we are now into day 10 and beyond, then this is where we kind of go into fantasy land, and it's not really showing very much of anything. I would suggest that's when models don't show very much of anything beyond the 10 days, that maybe that's when you have to start paying attention. So why don't we look at what's happening with the upper air? And you've got this block that we've been talking about for quite a while. That block started building on Friday, and here's what I think is going to be happening with regards to the block. Now, there's that big upper high. You see it sitting up across Greenland and in northern Canada. You've got a little of that vortex, little vortex there in Hudson's Bay, flow coming down out of Canada. This is for Tuesday afternoon. A bit of a southwest flow here in the east, which is why we warm up. That trough just really stays weak. The bottom part of the trough actually splits off and parks itself in the central Gulf, and that's responsible for a little coastal low that comes up Tuesday night and Wednesday, and then you see that trough heading toward the eastern Gulf and into the southeast, which is which justifies the rain that's being indicated for Thursday and Thursday night and into probably part of Friday for Florida. But in the northeast, and you see the upper low rotates up and around under the block, so then you have another deep trough. This is for Sunday. Now this is where we get the cold shot to come on in. And the upper high, let me go back, that strong upper high weakens pretty quickly late this week and into next weekend, but there's a ridge that builds right back in the Atlantic up toward Greenland. Now, this is something that I think might be important in the scope of the longer term, because the fact that a ridge in that area breaks down and then another one tries to form to replace it, perhaps this could be an indication that this blocking pattern, or this tendency to have higher than normal pressures in the North Atlantic, and as a result a suppressed further south jet stream, may be something that will carry forward into the first part of the winter. So we want to pay attention to this and see if it evolves this way in the longer term. Here's the early next week with that shot of cold air. There's a fairly deep upper trough here off the east coast, and the trough position is too far to the east to worry about any kind of storm development. If we start to see models trending westward with this, then we may get interested. And then gradually over time, as we look at the upper air, it still looks cold enough, but it also still really doesn't look all that exciting in terms of storms. You do have that higher than normal pressures showing up toward the end of the period and through the latter stages of the long range up in the North Atlantic and up in the polar regions. But let's see over the next several days if that trend continues, because if it does do that, I think that would be important in terms of how the things will be structured in the long haul. Now, with respect to snow, why don't we check where we're going for the next 10 days. And I think the main snowfall activity is going to be from lake effect snows and whatever low pressure systems that are up near the Canadian border. So this is the GFS over 10 days with some, not too bad, not too shabby late November snow amounts being forecast for western New York, northwestern PA, and on up into interior New England. Certainly we've had years where we've seen nothing this time of year. Back through the Great Lakes, we're seeing not really all that much, and also not all that much into the northern plains. And then as we move on into the west, you can see a pretty strong concentration of snows in the places where they've been getting it, and that's basically up in the northern Rockies and in the interior areas of the Pacific Northwest, and it also extends down into the mountains of California. I'm going to switch over to southeastern Canada now, and we'll look at their snowfall for the next 10 days or so. And again, the bulk of it is over where you would expect to see it in Quebec province and up in Labrador. You're starting to get some heftier snow amounts in western Newfoundland and on up through parts of New Brunswick. But on the whole, the coast doesn't look to be all that eventful. And with respect to actual storm systems, as we watch the GFS here, you know, we get a couple of lows that swing on through, one at the end of the week that brings mostly rain, except up where you would think it would be up in Labrador. And then not too much happens here until late in the weekend when we get that cold front coming into the east and low pressure runs up from the St. Lawrence Valley northeastward. Then it looks like some kind of low that develops and moves over eastern Nova Scotia and brings some snow to heavy snow, in fact, in parts of heavier snow in parts of New Brunswick and western Nova Scotia. But it goes west of Newfoundland, so it's mostly rain for you guys. And then another mostly rain system as we move toward the latter part of next week and make our way up into the beginning of December. So no big storms, no big Atlantic storms impacting you over there. Across the pond, we'll go to Europe and see what's happening. And actually pretty interesting here with some snows going on today over parts of Turkey. And you see the stripe of snow back over through parts of southwest Siberia, a little bit of snow up through southern areas of Poland and Germany. Moving forward, the models are actually showing it cold enough for some snow in parts of northern Scotland and even in through parts of northern Ireland when I show you the snow map for later this week. Now, I don't know if that's elevation driven or not, but I'm going to have to do a little more investigating. But we've got this storm that parks itself up in the North Atlantic, and it just kind of sits there. You can see it just spinning away. Eventually, it swings eastward and moves into Norway and Sweden. More activity in the Mediterranean at some point as we move into early next week. Looks like a weak weather system at that point moves into parts of England and Ireland and then swings southward into France. And then yet another front swings from the northwest with some snow there as we move over into days 11 and 12. Again, if this is at the point that we could see, you know, models really change. But here's your 10-day snowfall forecast, and showing some snows even in through parts of France and a good chunk of Germany, on up through all of Poland. Most of this looks to be on the light side, and I'm guessing where you see the darker purples showing maybe some elevation-driven snows. Certainly you're going to have some heavy snows in the Italian and Swiss Alps, and it just goes on and on from there. So I think this week, unless models change, it's going to, you know, be a little bit harder to find things to talk about. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to show you, so let me see if it shows up again, which I thought was pretty interesting. Let me bring this map back up. I'm going to show you the hemispheric view of temperatures. And here's a region that I don't show very often. And we're going to kind of look at the world from the top down. All right, so let me get rid of these colors. And we're going to put on the temperature anomaly for the next couple of weeks. And I want you to notice something over time that happens as we move through the end of the month and the beginning of December. But you're going to see, okay, it's gotten stuck on me. Let me see if I can backtrack it. All right, why is it? Oh, because it only has, I see what's going on. Okay, you know what? I'm going to back up one run. But I want to show you the 12Z run here of this. and again showing above normal and below normal temperatures. Unlike the last couple of years, you actually have larger areas of below normal temperatures. Almost as many areas are below normal as above, but one of the areas that remains continually above average in terms of the surface temperature is the area over the poles. And this is, I think, significant over time because of the fact if that is a reflection of what is going on in the upper atmosphere, that you are going to see more of a tendency for blocking to occur, or certainly more of a tendency for the jet stream to be displaced further and further south. The other thing is you're seeing a lot of the country running with temperatures in Canada anyway below average, and I think that's a significant development to pay attention to. I'm going to just go to the upper, a little bit higher in the atmosphere at the 5,000 foot level, and you can see the extent of how large the colder than average temperatures are at the 5,000 foot level. So you're going to have this tendency, perhaps if we continue to see a general regime of above normal temperatures over the polar regions of the North Atlantic, that it might be a hint of a blocking pattern that could last longer, or at least take us into the first part of the winter. So when the weather gets very quiet, I start to look around at things and see, what it is that I could find. And I would strongly suggest you youngsters out there, you budding meteorologists, and also you enthusiasts out there, to do that when the weather is quiet. Take a look at what's going on elsewhere, and figure out how it may or may not eventually impact your weather. So let me say a very big hello to everyone that's on board tonight. Delvin, Hosea, James NASCAR, Paul Sack. I saw Chris Alley, you're on. I hope you're feeling better. And everybody else. So one big hello. Robert Hurley says, looks like the jet evens out for the beginning of December and a little warmer. Well, I think we're gonna continue in these with these shots, but maybe when we get into the early part of December, at least for a few days, looks like the jet kind of normalizes from west to east. The flow gets zonal when we have this sort of west to east flow. Now, how long it stays that way remains to be seen. And of course, given the unstable nature of the pattern when it's like this, I would be careful trying to draw conclusions from run to run, and even from model to model. David Schwartz, some rain in South Florida later this week, but nothing that I think is too problematic. Certainly not worried about any kind of tropical storm. Let's see. It's you're up around 60 today, always smiling in Dublin. Well, great, but you're going to get some colder weather, it looks like, as we go through later this week. And William Huber, yes, I got some snow showers too today. I did see them also. Yes, and the Russian snow line, crazy and lazy. Yeah, it looked like there was going to be a solid snowstorm there for a narrow band for somebody. It was you got quite the squall, it seems. Cold air hitting the warm water up in lake effect land. Oh, I see what you're saying. So, okay, I got you now. I'm sorry. Yeah, the lake effect snowfalls weren't too shabby in some places. There were some areas up in north central New York, east of Lake Ontario, that got about half a foot to a foot. I know that's small. I know that's usually small potatoes for them with some of the bigger lake effect events, but this was really the first one that got underway. So they did pretty well. I think there may be another lake effect event for upstate New York and northwestern Pennsylvania come Sunday, when we get this shot of cold air to come on down. So that might be one that produces some lake effect snows, perhaps more than what they got this time around. All right, folks, going to end it right here tonight, as we, we'll save it for when we've got weather, some active weather going on, and me, we could go for an hour without too much difficulty. But we're gonna cut it short at this point. And besides, everybody's got stuff to do for Thanksgiving and traveling and so on. So you should be getting ready for that. And of course, obviously, for those of you traveling for the Thanksgiving Day holiday across the United States, Much of the weather is going to be fine. Weather is not going to be getting in the way for most of you. Driving should be easy from that standpoint, although traffic is going to nail you for sure. So make sure you get an early start. Just to give you a heads up, I will probably not do any live stream on Wednesday because I will be celebrating Thanksgiving on Wednesday, and therefore I'm going to take a break. So after tomorrow, I'll probably take Wednesday off, and then be back probably on Thanksgiving Day, later in the day, when everybody's digested their food already. You can watch a weather live stream later Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening, and of course Friday with the big shopping day, I will definitely be live streaming then. So check out, by the way, if you go on my channel page at the very top where you see the big picture at the banner on my channel page, there is a Facebook link, a website link, a Twitter link, and a Google Plus link. So put them to good use at any time, anywhere, and you'll be able to get to any of those places with ease. Okay? And the only other thing is that if you're getting ready for Christmas, you want to get somebody a Joe Stradamus mug, or perhaps a Joe Stradamus stationery book, or maybe even a Joe Stradamus shower curtain. It's all on the Joe Stradamus store, and there'll be a link up later on. You can access that as well. But by no means is anyone obligated. Just putting it out there. All right, folks, have a great evening. We will see you tomorrow. And if you're traveling for Thanksgiving, please travel safely.